speakers and participants. We're all ready to get started. So thanks everybody for joining us today. I'm very, very pleased to be having this event for the Asia Pacific region to engage with the industry and all of our stakeholders in Australia, New Zealand, and in the greater Southeast Asia area for all the participants joining us. So thanks very much for being here today and for participating in this event and our future events that are coming up. And we'll be telling you a lot more about those as we go along. First, I'd like to introduce the SQFI team. First of all, Gigi Vita, she is our Chief and Senior Vice President of SQFI. SQF is owned and operated by FMI, which is the Food Industry Association headquartered in the United States. SQFI has been a part of FMI since 2003, I believe, and we're very proud for that relationship and for all the support that we have globally with the whole organization here. And I'm going to introduce a few of us from the team. My name is Carey Allen. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for the Global Business Development team. So my team helps to support all of the regions and certification bodies and all of our stakeholders and certified operations in all of our different regions. LeAnn Chuboff is our Vice President of Technical Affairs. She's joining us today on the seminar to tell us more about some initiatives and performance of the SQFI program and some trends and highlights from the SQF Unites conference as well. Margaret Kaur is our Vice President of Marketing. She's part of FMI. She helps support FMI and the SQF organization globally with our marketing and promotional efforts. She and I work very closely together. Very pleased and happy to have Margaret and her team's support for SQF. Daniel Akinmalayan is the Director of IT and Customer Service for SQFI. So his team members help support all of our certified operations in their efforts to maintain their certification process throughout the year with being registered and any customer service questions. I'd like to also introduce in more detail LeAnn Chuboff's team from the technical team. Tammy Van Buren is our compliance manager. Tammy works with all of our certification bodies and our certified sites when there are any compliance related questions or issues. And she is diligently working on providing data analysis and insights for our certification bodies to help them serve our certified operations more closely in all of your regions. Christy Grzwinski is the Director of Training. She develops and manages all of our training programs. She's our creative force behind training development and also helps to support all of our learners globally who are registering for our training programs. So between LeAnn, Tammy, and Christy, they've got a full plate in managing everything related to SQFI and what we're delivering every day globally. And we're very, very proud and happy to have their support here on this call today. So thank you so much for everything that you're bringing to our community for the SQF program. I'm very, very excited to have the opportunity to welcome Damien Alexander to our team with SQFI. He has joined us recently in January of 2023. Damien comes to us from a couple of decades of experience in the food industry in the Australia, New Zealand region with lots of experience in the greater Asia Pacific area. Damien will be our SQFI representative in that broader region, working together with our China representative, Sarah Wu, and our Japan representative, Noriko Nakama. I think both of them are also joining us on the event tonight, so they'll be here to listen to our presenters and hear your questions. So between Damien and Sarah and Noriko, they provide quite a strong team to help support all the development of SQFI in the region with sites who are looking to become certified, sites who are already certified, and our training centers and certification bodies in the region. So welcome, Damien. I hope everybody on the call will have the opportunity to reach out and welcome him to the team and engage with Damien on your needs for SQF in the area. I'd like to give a special thanks to Ume Arsawala. She's our SQFI Asia Pacific Customer Service Representative. She is there on the other side of the world from us here in the headquarters in the United States. Ume helps to support all of our certified operations, CBs, and training centers and our business development representatives with questions that may come up, support needs that may come up. So we really appreciate their ability to react quickly, help you out with your issues right away in your own time zone. So Ume and Damien and Noriko and Sarah all work very closely together as a team to make sure that our friends and community members with SQFI in the area are supported very closely. So thanks so much, Ume, for all of your work and for helping us out tonight on this event, or today, your day, my tonight. Thank you. So a little bit about today's program. I'll be giving you a quick business update about SQF. We'll also have LeAnn Chuboff and Damien Alexander giving us some insights into the industry and into the SQFI program trends. We'll have Todd Redwood giving us a GFSI update. We'll have several speakers from the retail sector, our stakeholders, Marion Bray and Leah Williamson, giving us their perspectives on retail supply chain food safety management. Very much looking forward to hearing their perspectives. We'll have Pesman Montag giving us a presentation about getting started with SQF. And we'll have a closing panel session at the end of the event today with all of our guest speakers talking about food safety culture and redefining what it means to be successful in the food safety audit. So getting a better understanding of what is the value from your food safety SQF certification audit and how do we define success, a successful audit. We're really looking forward to hearing your input and questions on that topic and any other questions that you might have that come out through the course of the event. So we encourage you to submit your questions and raise your hand to ask a question live during the panel session, or as indicated by the speakers, if they're able to take questions during the course of their presentations. So again, thank you for participating and being an active member of the discussion. We're really looking forward to engaging in a really great dialogue. So I just wanted to point out our global network of SQFI certification bodies. We're very lucky to have a really broad range of local and global certification bodies partnered with SQFI. So tonight we have several of our speakers who are representing some of our SQF certification bodies. We have Anne-Marie from Marion Nutrisciences speaking on our panel session. We have Pesman from SAI, and we have David Williams facilitating our panel session from SGS, and Todd Redwood from BSI will be giving us the GFSI update. So the participation of our industry experts from our certification bodies is very important to us in making sure that we stay on top of emerging issues in your region and knowing what is happening with our individual certified sites. So thanks a lot very much for your support in helping our certified bodies, our certified operations succeed with SQF. I just wanted to point out too that SQFI has many global brands who recognize SQF certification globally. We have many well-known North America-based retailers, but also many international global brands and retailers who accept SQFI. So we encourage you to have a good understanding of what your customer needs are and really have a better understanding after today of why SQFI is a great option for certification to meet your retailer or other buyers' needs for food safety certification. I'd just like to take a moment to introduce the SQF International Business Development Team. Our representatives that are positioned around the globe are here to support SQF stakeholders in each of the regions that they represent. And as you can see, we're positioned well to support the broader areas, even outside of North America. We have 3 representatives in Asia Pacific to support you, as I mentioned previously. And in addition, for those organizations that are international, multinational brands, we have representatives in the Americas that can help support those companies who have manufacturing operations around the globe. So SQF can help meet the needs for those individual small to medium-sized suppliers who are adopting SQFI because of its ability to meet your needs from an accessibility point of view and adaptability point of view. We like to think about SQF and its ability to be integrated as a food safety management system for all types of organizations, small and large. And so we're here as a global team to help support that. SQF currently has over 11,000 SQF certificates globally. We're very excited about the growth that we've experienced in the last several years, even through the difficult times that we've experienced recently. SQF has continued to grow. We have the majority of our certificates are in the Americas, but we also have a growing number of certified operations in Asia Pacific. And with our full team on board in the Asia Pacific area, we're really excited about being able to grow our presence there and support growing companies like the ones that are joining us today. So thanks again for all your support as a community in helping us to grow as an organization. Just wanted to mention a little bit about the structure of the SQFI program. So as you may or may not know, SQF's food safety certification codes go from end to end across the supply chain. So we have food safety certification requirements and broken out into separate codes specific to the different sectors of the supply chain. In primary production, we have separate codes for plant production, animals, and aquaculture. We have codes within manufacturing for human food, including animal processing of animal products, animal and pet food, manufacture of food packaging, and manufacture of dietary supplements. We have a code specifically for storage and distribution operations. And on top of the food safety codes that I just mentioned, we also have the quality certification that allows sites to become certified and display the SQF quality shield on their finished product package. The quality certification program is an add-on to the food safety program certification that helps you demonstrate commitment to customer requirements and is that consumer-facing promise of product quality. And we know that having that consumer-facing promise is really something valuable for a lot of food brands who want to differentiate themselves. So we encourage you to investigate that. It is a very nice addition to your food safety certification that does not add a lot of extra work because it's aligned with the structure of the food safety code. I want to mention the SQF Fundamentals program. Food Safety Fundamentals is a global markets audit option. So if your buyer is telling you that they will accept a global markets audit or certification, SQF Fundamentals is a global markets audit option, and it's a great option for small suppliers who aren't quite ready for the full GFSI benchmarked food safety code, but are looking to get started with the ambition of eventually becoming fully GFSI benchmark certified to the SQF code. So if you're interested in the SQF Fundamentals Global Markets option, there is the basic and intermediate level for primary production and manufacturing, and it can also be adapted for packaging, manufacturing, and storage and distribution. So if that seems like it might be a great option for your company, please reach out to one of your representatives to ask more about that and how you might incorporate SQF Fundamentals to get you started on the path to GFSI benchmark certification. So a little bit about what makes SQFI different, just to touch really quickly on why we think SQF is a great option for companies of all sizes to meet the needs of your buyer's requirements. It's accessible to businesses of all sizes. Cost is not a barrier to choosing SQFI for small or large organizations. The upfront registration fees for SQFI are minimal and is not really a barrier to choosing SQF. The SQF certification code is adaptable. It's unique in that it helps companies adapt their existing food safety programs to a GFSI benchmark program because it is a risk-based certification. So you get to decide how you comply with the requirements. SQF is not prescriptive. It doesn't tell you what to do. It gives you the requirements for how to illustrate your commitment to the food safety management principles, and your management system can be adapted to demonstrate compliance to the SQF code. We like to also highlight that SQF is approachable because of its collaborative relationship with stakeholders. We provide access to all of our guidance documents and tip sheets and codes for free. That information is available for direct download from our website, along with many other video resources and print documents that you can resource in developing your food safety program. We also have an extensive training library, like, as I mentioned, free videos, but also self-paced training opportunities through our partner on the Zosi platform. So if you're interested in self-paced learning online, SQF has a lot of great options. Plus, our training centers offer SQF licensed exclusive training programs that can be done either virtually live with an instructor or even on site with a trainer in person. Quickly about our business results, just want to touch on this really fast so you can see the scope of our certification program. We have sites of all sizes. So as you can see from this diagram, between small, medium, large, and extra large operations, we have a really great distribution in our portfolio of certified operations. So you can see that here, the SQF is attractive to all size operations because of its adaptability for different types of facilities within a large organization, or even as just a small supplier who's just getting started. So we encourage all different types of operations to come to us and investigate how SQF might help fit your needs. We've seen a growth of 20% in new business over the last year, with greater than 90% certified site retention year over year. So that tells us that sites are finding success and continuing on with SQF certification year after year. You can see our total site count year over year has increased in all of our major regions as well. For our investment for growth, we have lots of initiatives, and LeAnn will be telling you more about this, but in general, we want to stay engaged with our audience in all of our major markets. Asia Pacific is a very important region to us. SQF started in Australia. We feel like SQF is our home, and we want to make sure that SQF continues to be a valuable food safety standard for all the types of operations that are running in Australia. And we know that the Australian food industry is growing like leaps and bounds, and Damien will be talking more about that. I'm really excited to see some of the data he has to present about the Australian food industry. This year, we'll be having a lot of on-site and virtual events happening in all of our different regions, including Australia, New Zealand, and the greater Asia Pacific area. So please stay tuned for more information about those on-site and virtual events. We look forward to seeing you there. And our next SQF Unites International Conference will be happening in early 2024. Here's a quick slide on our contacts, which you can find later as we share these slides. I encourage you to reach out to your local representative. And that is the end of my section. So I would like to share and kick it off to head over to Damien to continue our presentation tonight. Thanks very much for your time and listening to my presentation. And Damien will be giving a more detailed introduction to all of our speakers as they come up throughout the program. But I'll hand it off to you, Damien. Thank you.
Thank you, Carey, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon in this side of the world, and at night time for our colleagues in Northern America. I've recently started with SQFI and have a long history of working with SQF since version 2 back in 1997. So I'm really pleased and honoured to be part of continuing to work with SQF throughout my career. Just a couple of things to reiterate that Carey mentioned was that if you have any questions for the speakers, if you can please put that into the chat, we will monitor that chat, and I will bring up those questions and ask those questions of the speakers on your behalf as we work our way through. The other thing to note as well is that this afternoon, towards the end of our program, we have the panel. We have a panel session with all of our speakers are joining and talking about the value of the certified audits and what does success look like. That will be chaired by David Williams from SGS. If any questions pop up into your mind regarding what you could be asking the panel around what does success look like through your audit process, please again add that to the chat. We will monitor that, and I'll work our way through it as we're going through our presentations today, and I'll be, on your behalf, I'll be raising those questions to the panel, and likewise as to our speakers as we work our way through. I think what I'll do now is I'll jump straight into my presentation before I then work our way through and introduce the other speakers. So just bear with me a moment as I... There we go. I'm going to, apologies. Okay. So what I'd like to talk about today is give a bit of an overview of where we're at in not just Australia, but including New Zealand and parts of Asia, our industry post-COVID, and arguably post-COVID in some parts of the world, it's certainly continuing on to be a challenge. And certainly for the food industry, we're continuing on to have some direct and indirect challenges from ongoing COVID issues. But it's certainly been an interesting time where we've really learnt how resilient our food industry is. It's highlighted a number of our weak points with the food industry. It's also highlighted how essential and how strong our industry is. One of the things that's also highlighted is the importance of innovation to our industry, including change, and being able to change quickly, be it working from home. We've had a whole heap of labour shortages in our region. We've even had pallets shortages. So being innovative to come up with solutions, safe food quality solutions on the spot is something that we've had to do, and we've had to embrace. It's opened up a lot of new and old markets, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in my presentation in detail. However, with local sourcing has been highlighted a lot. Challenge, and I know some of our presenters today are going to talk about the challenges with sourcing, which we've had during COVID and post-COVID, but there's been a growth in local industry, particularly from retailers and larger manufacturers looking for a local supply chain to give them that confidence that they'll actually be able to get those ingredients or products. There has been internationally, there absolutely has been an increase in food fraud, and that is continuing. Certainly continuing with inflation and price pressure. That is a challenge that we're all facing in the food industry, and will continue to face as we continue through. In Australia particularly, we've had a really rapid growth post-COVID in small to medium food businesses, and I've got some statistics on that coming up. For those who've been in the industry for a number of years, like myself, particularly in Australia and New Zealand, we used to have a lot of small manufacturers. Over time, some of those manufacturers have either closed or been swallowed up by larger manufacturers. We're now seeing post-COVID an emergence of a number of small manufacturers again, which is great to see and invigorating to the industry. We've certainly discovered how QA teams can become the new COVID team. And with QA people having experience in risk management, getting thrown into documenting, coordinating, managing, not just food safety and food quality, but actually a business themselves and how they tackle COVID. Seen a lot of that. Certainly the risk appetites have changed with so many challenges to our industry, and so many changes to our industry. The risk appetite of businesses and QA people have been challenged and have changed. So we can't buy from this supplier. Where do we get our ingredients from? How do we stay in business? We still need to make sure the food is safe, quality is appropriate. So where previously there may have been some reluctance to make changes, the industry itself has been forced to make changes. And so with that has been changes in the risk appetite to change, adversity to change, but also the challenges with dealing with, be it from an allergen, from a micro perspective, through the supply chain. We have post-COVID, in Australia particularly and New Zealand, we've had some significant flooding, obviously the war in Ukraine, and we're continuing continuing to be challenged by inflation. With all of these challenges, there is some significant opportunities for the food industry. So one of the things, and I'm going to talk about other countries other than Australia I know we have some New Zealand friends on here, and we've also got some people from Vietnam and Fiji. But in Australia, exports post-COVID are rising rapidly, particularly in the beef and wheat sector. Seafood is also continuing to grow, but we've seen a significant ramp up in our export industry. Interestingly enough, one of the our emerging biggest customers for growth is Vietnam. If we do a breakdown of the Australian export industry, 72% of agricultural production is actually exported. So it's a really significant part of our industry and our economy. So beef and veal, 78% of beef and veal supplied manufactured in Australia is actually exported. And again, this is growing. It's growing substantially. And we haven't seen this much growth in our export industry for well over 10 years. So it's exciting. Likewise in New Zealand. Well, New Zealand has seen a steady growth in exports over a number of years, particularly in the dairy industry, continuing to grow, and meat is growing substantially as well. So there's big opportunities, new markets opening up for our New Zealand colleagues in that export space. As I said, dairy, meat and wool, growing considerably, and it's expected over the next several years to continue to grow. So in Vietnam, post-COVID, they've had a 30 to 40% growth in quick service restaurants. So the economy in Vietnam is doing well. It's being challenged like everywhere else. However, we now have more available money to spend. We've got more affluences coming into certain segments of Vietnam. So the growth in quick service restaurants has been dramatic. And with that comes opportunities for manufacturers to start up. Certainly in meat and seafood, manufacturers are expanding and growing rapidly. In Vietnam, dairy exports coming out of Vietnam are continuing to rise as well. So great growth opportunity in Vietnam. And as I said, it's the fastest growth market for the Australian exports. In Fiji, again, we're continuing to grow. While Fiji being relatively quite small in the Asia Pacific region, they're exporting and manufacturing things like organic coconut and ginger products, chocolate and kava. The demand on those products is increasing, and I'm really pleased to say that they're doing very well in those areas. Now, as I mentioned previously, the growth in small businesses in Australia over time, and this is registered food businesses, food manufacturing businesses in Australia, it's been trickling along for a number of years. We've had post-COVID, we've had a substantial growth in these areas. So if you jump ahead to my next slide, over a 5-year average pre-COVID, so 2019 back 5 years, 6.1% growth. Post-COVID for new business registrations, 16%, and it's continuing to rise. So there's a demand for locally produced products. I myself live in regional New South Wales, and there's a number of small producers, manufacturers that are starting up. They're not only supplying the local region, but they now have larger customers asking for their products to supply their product. So they're going from the small local business to that next stage of being a further larger manufacturer. So I'm really pleased to say that we've got some strong growth in the food industry in Australia and across the Asia Pacific. So the Australian Food and Grocery Council have said with the correct investment and innovation, they're confident that our industry in Australia the food manufacturing industry in Australia can almost double by 2030. So double in size, almost double in size. So really promising, great time to be in the food industry, all with the challenges, COVID, innovation challenges, money challenges. We're looking like our industry has got a strong future ahead of us. Now, some of the things we've learned from COVID, and as I mentioned earlier about new and old markets opening up, the number one trend in food choices for consumers based on multiple surveys is health. Health is ranked number one. So a lot more people have been health conscious during COVID and continuing on post-COVID. Likewise, sustainability, ethical products has been a big consumer purchasing driver. With inflation and ongoing inflation and interest rates rising, etc., there has been a reduction recently, in general spending. So rather than buying the latest television or maybe iPhone or larger indulgences, what's happening is where people are actually buying smaller indulgences. So buying convenient, quality, gourmet type food treats. Those types of spends and those types of products, the increase in the market space in those continues to rise. Likewise, we've had a rapid growth, which was continuing prior to COVID, but we had a rapid growth during COVID of purchasing online. And we have the new 5-second rule. For those who know what the 5-second rule is, if you drop it on the ground, you can pick it up and eat it within 5 seconds. I'm joking, you know that's not correct. The new 5-second rule is if you can't find it on your phone when you're searching for something, you're looking to buy online grocery shopping, within 5 seconds, if you can't find it, you then go to the next one. You then go to the next retailer or online site. Likewise, there is a growth in greater diversity in our population and recognition for greater diversity. So minorities are being catered for, and there's brand alignment, there's targeting for those different types of minorities. With the increased inflation, we've had an increase in private label purchasing. So customers are buying more private label products. The challenge with that is, while more private label products are being sold, it doesn't necessarily mean with inflation that more money is being made for the retailer or the manufacturer because of making sure that those prices are maintained at the set price that have been set by the market or the industry. Likewise, post-COVID, aligned with the health, is more cooking at home. We've seen a significant amount of people either by force with lockdowns, but also from a health conscious perspective, wanting to cook at home. So an exponential growth in the sale of meal kits. Likewise too, it's during COVID, post-COVID, it's really reinforced how much trust and confidence that customers have on the food industry. Trust is easily lost, if not more now than ever. So the safety is a given, quality is a given. If something's not quite right, consumers won't tolerate it. They'll then go to the next product with all the choices that are being available. Now, in our industry, we have some challenges around innovation, particularly with inflation. So with inflation, the investment into innovation can be a challenge. However, industry are doing it. Again, I'm pleased to say, not only the large segments, some of the small segments as well. And the Australian and New Zealand food industry have some great support in that, which I'll talk about. So just some general innovation, things that are absolutely either being developed or actually in place now. So in the regional area where I am, and likewise across different areas of Australia, we have fenceless paddocks for cattle and dairy cattle. So using electronic devices on the cattle, they learn very quickly, not harming the beast. that this is the area that they need to work on. And when it's time to go down to, which they generally know anyway, when it's time to be milked, but it's time to move from one paddock to the other, that can be done electronically rather than going out, getting your dogs, etc. So this is an amazing innovation. Likewise, using sensors on animals to monitor the welfare and the health of animals, having an impact of potentially reducing antibiotic administration. Along with that too, we have an increase in mobile abattoirs. So for the quality of the product, an abattoir going onto a farm, and that is growing. Again, number of businesses growing in that area. Classifying remote electronic classifying of wool while it's on the sheep's back, while not food, is an example of the area that we're working to. Drone application. Now, this had started prior to COVID, but again has now gone exponentially. So targeting crop spraying on crops, so reducing the amount of chemical to be used, reducing amount of the overspray. So very controlled, targeted application, reducing potentially excess MRLs. Continuing development in packaging for spoilage. So your packaging starts to change when spoilage is detected. So, okay, this is probably not the time to consume this product. New drainage systems, using old technology, bringing it back in to prevent biofilms. AI technology is now coming into the industry. A lot of people are scared of the AI technology, rightly or wrongly. However, the benefits of introducing some of these technologies into the food industry are significant. So foreign object detection and advancement, while the traditional radar, X-ray, metal detector, while the technology around how that equipment works is the same, the computer power increase means that it's much better at actually detecting and trending. And again, post-COVID, we've seen a significant improvement in those areas for new, particularly in the X-ray field. Lab-grown milk, that's one that's emerging, that's coming up, and new plant-based proteins. So lots of new things happening and lots of exciting things happening in our industry. Two support networks that I want to call out here in Australia is CSIRO, which is a government organisation, and they certainly support and work with industry on innovation and developing innovation with industry. And again, promoting where I'm from in the regional area, the University of New England have the Smart Region Incubator, which works with those small businesses, again, around innovation for startup and look at different opportunities and market opportunities. So why am I so positive about the industry? Why are we continuing to grow? We're trusted. Our products internationally recognised as clean and green still, but we're trusted. We're known in Australia to have safe, and New Zealand and across Asia, safe, quality, reliable food source. Compared to the other challenges that's been going on in the world, this has really reiterated the importance of trust in the food industry. So I wouldn't be, having recently joined SQF, I would not be doing my job if I didn't have some sort of segue back into SQF. So as Carey rightly said earlier on, over 10,000, 11,000 certified sites now, over 40 countries in Australia with the SQF program. Having originally originated from Australia back in 1995, it's continued to grow and to be globally recognised by industry as a trusted standard code for integrity. So leaning on what Carey mentioned earlier regarding our point of difference is, and I'm going to show you some examples, we have reference guides and tip sheets, which I don't believe everyone is aware of in the industry, having certainly spoken to a number of people in the industry over the years. SQF have some free guidance documents on lots of different topics that will actually to help support industry with their food safety quality management program. SQF 365, I'll talk about that shortly, but as Carey said, we offer a lot of training. training and support around risk management, etc. If you haven't signed up to the SQF Smart Briefs, I recommend you do so on the SQFI page. If you scroll down the bottom, you can sign up to get the most recent information. And as Carey mentioned, we have on-ground support. Now, this is not our entire team, but we have support for industry, for our certification bodies, for our auditors, for certified businesses, for emerging businesses that want to go down that certification path. We have boots on the ground to support that journey, and to ultimately, we all are passionate about making sure we're providing safe and quality food. So SQF 365 coming up in Australia. So this is where we're running seminars like this one, but we're doing round table events, working with retailers, certification bodies, auditors, all around educating and supporting. So really trying to drive the outcome again of safe quality food across our industry. This is just one example. This is a screenshot of our guidance documents. So guidance documents for approved supplier program, food fraud, food defence. So some of you may have had these programs in place for a number of years. I still recommend you go and have a look. They're all free. Likewise, we have checklists in place. So if you wanted to use as part of your internal audit program for a checklist, I've got all those things developed. We've got tools to support you. Hesman, I'm not going to steal his thunder because his whole presentation is around going down that certification path. Again, one of the points of differences with SQF is that we have a number of standards that are industry specific, and parts of those standards are risk-based. As Carey mentioned, that there is some prescription in the standards, but if you've got alternative methods of compliance to demonstrate how you actually meet the code, then that's something that is a big point of difference with our standard. Having, again, been around the industry, and I know a number of you have, when we've gone from risk-based to prescription to risk-based to prescription, I believe this is a good balance of both. So for someone who's new to the industry, a new business, they're looking for that, what do I do, etc. We've got those elements in there, but likewise, if there's an alternative method of compliance where you can still meet the intent and the requirements of the code, but you've got a different way of doing it, every business is different, then the standard and the codes cater for those, which again, Carey's spoken about and Pesma's going to touch on. So that's it for me. Thank you very much for your time. Great to see so many familiar faces and some new people online. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions. The other thing that I'll point out to, which apologies, I should have mentioned this earlier, was that all of these presentations are currently being recorded, and following the end of the seminar today, if you've registered, you'll get a copy of the presentation. The link will be emailed to you. So if you need to jump back in, etc., you're more than welcome to do so. Following that now, I'd like to introduce the SQF Technical Affairs Manager, LeAnn Chuboff, to talk about some updates in the SQF world. Thank you, LeAnn.
Okay, thank you, Damien. Let me share my screen and I should be ready to go. Hopefully everybody can see my presentation. Okay, can everybody see my presentation? Yes. Okay, well,
It's on
hello.
the center mode. We can see both slides. So if maybe just change the display setting.
Sure, thank you.
There we go. That's good.
Okay, awesome. All righty. Thank you, Carey. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us today regarding this regional seminar. My name is LeAnn Chuboff, and I'm the Vice President of Technical Affairs at SQF. I think I know most of you with being with SQF for 14 years. So I look forward to our conversations today. So I like to do in the beginning of the year and at the end at SQF Unites, it's called the town hall. And what that means is that it's an interactive presentation. So I look forward to seeing your chats, and I look forward to conversations that you have as it relates to our program. So I'm going to share with you some insights to our program, some data and statistics that we have throughout the year, last year, and then some new projects that we're working on as well. Okay, so I want to start first with what our role is, and especially from the technical side. And that's really to build that trust in the supply chain. So we strive to build that trust in the supply chain. So it means evaluating the 700 auditors that we have registered, or the 37 global CBs, as well as the 12,000 certificates that we have. And that's all under the SQF compliance and integrity programs responsibility. It also includes looking at the tools and resources that we can provide to our community in training and in those resources that Damien just shared. So we do that a variety of ways. Tammy Van Buren, our compliance manager, manages that entire supply chain, auditors, certification bodies. And she has a database that we just enacted this year to help us better utilize that data. So instead of death by Excel spreadsheet, we can now look at it cross-sectionally, all the data, to help identify anomalies, trends, and really evaluate where we could build continuous improvement in our program, and then better the supply chain. So we look at that, which is really all the data we pulled from all of our audits. But we also look at our recall data. So we want to identify where are those areas of opportunities within the supply chain. Recalls that have occurred globally are required by sites and certification bodies to be communicated to SQF. And we look at that data to see what are those high risk areas and what are those areas of concern, and how can we address them, either through a particular code change or a guidance document, or even within our training programs. And then we also look to see that we want to grow and strengthen our auditor pool. So what we do know is that there's an auditor shortage out there, and we recognize that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in some of my future slides. But we want to grow that pool because we know that CBs need choices as it relates to the quality of auditors that they have, and we want to grow that pool in order to give CBs more choices. So we want to grow, not just have an auditor, but have a good auditor, a good auditor that's going to provide a quality audit and a value worth audit. And then, of course, we want to provide those implementing solutions, as well as any regulatory updates globally, to provide that technical resource to all of our SQF sites, our certification bodies, our auditors, and all of our stakeholders, including trainers and consultants. And we want to ultimately create those training and leadership pathways for our food safety professionals. We want to be that training program of choice. We want to provide those opportunities and those professional growth as it relates to food safety, and building that food safety culture within the sites, and bettering, again, ultimately is putting trust in that supply chain to better food safety along that supply chain. And these are ultimately our goals. So how do we do that? We look at this, and what we wanted to do is, and what has been identified primarily by GFSI and those stakeholders within GFSI, are these areas of growth, or areas of focus. And so this is really to evolve the SQF brand, enhance that trust, and build confidence in that certification process. So on the left of the screen is the areas of focus. You'll see that it's to grow and strengthen the auditor pool, It's to develop and refine the SQF program. It's to manage certification body performance, as well as ensure that we have the latest and greatest database and technology-enabled solutions. So to do that, we have our own initiatives. So this is a global focus that we have in concert with GFSI. So how do we grow that auditor pool? We primarily now we work with Exemplar Global, who is our credentialing body. And Exemplar Global now is 17024 accredited. And so they have their own policies and procedures in place in order to ensure that the right auditor applicant is meeting the criteria. We also are looking to harmonize with other CPOs and GFSI regarding our auditor criteria. And I'll share some initiatives that we're working with. But we want to streamline that qualification process to make that transition from one CPO auditor to another CPO auditor. And then we want to look to explore what are some of those other avenues where we can recruit auditors globally. So what are in the US, for example, we look to the Army, our service men and women who have focused in on the on auditing within the retail environment. So within the service, and that transition from service to civilian life, and how we can recruit some of those experienced individuals and get them into our auditing pool. So we have a number of initiatives there to grow and strengthen that. And then the ongoing refinement of the SQF program. So SQF has established KPIs to maintain our brand equity. We want to focus in on those areas of excellence, and specifically what we have for complaints and appeals process. And then evaluate our recalls as a learning opportunity and share those outcomes and corrective actions with our community so that we can improve food safety along that supply chain. And that could either be in training, it could be in webinars or seminars such as this, as well as even in a code update. And then, of course, we're nothing without our certification bodies, and all our certification bodies do a wonderful job for us at SQF, especially in Australia. And we want to continue that by establishing those KPIs and sharing some of those opportunities so we can continuously improve. So we evaluate and we look at establishing these KPIs not as a stick, but as a carrot, mainly to focus on where we can continuously improve. So we look at our compliance database run by Intact. We look at what we have in ReposiTrak and all the other data that we collect within SQF in order to establish and measure these KPIs. And then, of course, our database and technology, Damien mentioned that even as an outcome of COVID and all the advancements that we made. So we do continuously improve our database and the function of our database so that we can provide solutions to all of our stakeholder groups. So we, if you've been to our public directory, we are very transparent into who is certified and very proud of those sites that have SQF certification. And we look to continuously update that directory to make the search easier for our retailers and buyers, and so that they can get a good transparent view as to who would be SQF certified and representing our brand. So as I promised, I do want to share some initiatives that we have going with each of those areas of focus. The first one, if you remember, is combating auditor shortage. And what we are proposing is to reduce the number of audit hours in order to become an SQF auditor. We spoke with our certification bodies and our technical advisory council, and we're reducing the audit hours from 160 to 120 audit hours. This is what GFSI has and many of the other GFSI standards. So again, harmonizing across the GFSI certification programs to create an easier transition from one standard to another standard. We want to retain the industry experience at 5 years. GFSI requires 2 years, but when we threw this idea out to our technical advisory council and our certification bodies, they insisted that it stay 5 years so that because that is a very important factor for our auditors to have, is that industry experience as well. And then proposed is that we want to align our food sector categories within the 15 GFSI industry scopes. So right now we have 30 food sector categories, and our goal really would be to reduce, not eliminate those food sector categories, but harmonize them across the different industry scopes. So it's not going to be specific to a food sector category, but mainly to an industry scope. It would still be required of the certification body to send in a auditor that is recognized in that industry. However, oftentimes we are doubling the price of the audit because we have to send in 2 auditors, or really can't use 2 auditors because it's taken away from another audit. So our goal is to really combat that auditor shortage and try and streamline some of these audits. So these are proposed right now, working with our certification bodies as well as the technical advisory council to sharpen these up before we propose them. So as I said, we do have key performance indicators, or KPIs, and we have them specific for all of SQF, but we, for this presentation, we broke them out into the particular region themselves. So there are 7 rules that we look at, and this is managed by our database. And the first one is the timeliness of issuing that certificate decision. And also how surveillance, the second rule is the surveillance audits, and that it's closed in 6 months. Corrective action closeout is rule number 3. The use of remote activities, so those hybrid audits, the ones that have part on-site and part off-site activities, those on-site hours have to be equal to or greater than 50%, and we monitor that under rule 4. Rule 5 is the audit duration. So GFSI established in their latest benchmarking requirements a minimum audit duration within manufacturing is 2 days, storage and distribution, food packaging is 1 day, half a day for those primary audits. So those are minimum audit durations that need to be met, and we evaluate those as well. Rule 6 is we look at that change in audit duration to see if there's any anomalies. Maybe it could be a different auditor, maybe the site switched CBs and it was a different assessment, but we look to see if there's a change in that audit duration, and that's under rule 6. And then rule 7 is evaluating the change in the audit score if that is greater than 10%. So we evaluate this again, looking at consistency of the application of the code requirements. It could be a new auditor, it could be the same auditor, but we really want to see if there is that difference within that auditing, within that auditor performance. So as you can see, the KPIs for Oceania, and that includes Australia and all Kiribati, Fiji, all the New Zealand, all those surrounding islands as well within around Australia. So rule number 3 seems to be the biggest violation that we see, and that's the closeout of corrective action within 30 days. And then rule number 1, that 45-day to certificate decision, and rule number 6 in the audit duration. So what we have is this this performance that we look at to evaluate our certification bodies, and we reach out to each of our certification bodies and share this performance either in an annual update that we do for their auditors, or even just meeting them one-on-one to share this performance that we capture last year. We also, so just to kind of build on those audit scores, so just comparing Oceania to all of SQF, you can see the data that we have. Sorry, the selection, I meant to change that. So a selection in this, if you're looking at the audit rating, is the Australian area, so Oceania. So apologize that I didn't change that on the slide. But the average is about 94, little over 90, almost 95%. The average for Oceania is 92, almost 93%. So not a big significant difference when you look at it. There are more good ratings than excellent and more than double the number of complies ratings. So there is some differences as it relates to the audit ratings, as well as the average score, but it's not that significant. We would investigate a little bit more into those complies ratings and see what if there's any patterns there. And it could vary. You know, maybe it really depends on the type of audit. You know, storage and distribution sites tend to score higher than food manufacturing sites. And same thing with food packaging sites. And so it really all depends. It's just really hard to judge where you are comparatively with SQF, but it doesn't seem like there's too big of an anomaly there. So I do want to share some of our KPIs that we measure against ourselves and how we can improve within SQF. And two of those KPIs, one is appeals and the other one is complaints. So within these, the purpose of this appeals process is to ensure that the auditor and the CB apply the requirements of the SQF code correctly. So in our review of an appeals, the site has to go through the certification body. So any site has the right to an appeal with the certification body. If they don't agree with a finding or a score or anything within that audit process and the outcome of that audit process, there is the right to appeal, but it starts with the site to the certification body. If that outcome of that appeal at the certification body level isn't, I don't want to say satisfactory because you might not like the outcome, but it has to be a fair and impartial process. But if there has to be some intervention, then SQF, the site can appeal to SQF. But keep in mind that our appeal process is there not to change the observation made by the auditor at the time of the audit, or is it for the site just to get a higher score? The appeals process strictly looks at did the auditor and the certification body interpret the code requirement as they should. And so we can't invite or investigate or review additional evidence to say, see, this is how I comply. So for example, there was an appeal that an auditor identified a puddle of water in a packaging warehouse that was coming from a drip from a pipe. And the site appealed and said, see, there's no water. And they sent a picture of the pipe. And so we said, you know, we can't look at that because that was not real time what the auditor saw. So it's probably, you know, could have been after it was cleaned up. So we had to side with the auditor because we can't invite new information. So that's like an example of some of the appeals that we get. So, you know, these are examples. We had appeals to our withdrawal policy. We had appeals to critical nonconformances, to major nonconformances and minor nonconformances, and then appeal because the site wanted to transfer under surveillance. So again, our goal is to ensure that the auditor and the CB applied the requirements correctly, and we're not here to change that observation. So appeals were trending down in 2021, and they were actually trending down in 2022 till the end of the year. And then we got this surplus of appeals that raised it to about where we normally are on an appeals process. So I don't know if COVID had a little, you know, maybe add that to some of the outcomes of COVID, but there might have been some influence there as well. So again, we also track complaints. So we track complaints. We had 17 complaints against the SQF site, and that's typically whistleblowers that call in, or former employees, or people that have concerns about the site or the product. And we also, they typically are saying that they're not following the code requirements, or that they're hiding things from the auditors. We also had complaints against auditors. So failure to uphold the auditor code of conduct, could be late submission of an audit report, or in the lack of response of such. We had cases where there were guaranteed scores. And so we had some outsiders call in and say, this auditor is guaranteeing a score if you use this consultant service. We had some falsification of records as it relates to travel and on-site auditors, and then just sharing information with other and consultant employees. So we had some complaints about auditors, and then some complaints against certification bodies, whether it's a conflict of interest or conducted an audit without qualifications, etc. So you think, okay, here's our complaints. We're about on par where we were with 2021 and 2022. And I know I'm providing you information, and you're thinking, wow, LeAnn, why are you sharing all this information about the complaints and appeals that we have? One, I want to share with you our process, and that we have that process in place. But I also want to emphasize, going back to, we have 12,000 certificates, 700 auditors, and 37 CBs. I think 25 complaints is pretty darn good on that ratio schedule. So I mean, nobody's going to like everything we do, and there is always going to be issues, but I do want to tell you all that we take all this feedback seriously and act on it, and reply to each and every one of these. And so this has been a great improvement. Moving forward, we will put some timestamps on these appeals and complaints to ensure that we're responding in a timely fashion to everybody as well. So another area that we look at is recall trends. And I use 2017 as our measure, because in 2017, during the SQF conference in 2017, we put forth our stretch goals. So those are those goals that are really audacious and attainable, but just seem unattainable. So we used recalls as a point, and I want to emphasize here, in the 2017 and 22 data, this isn't the number of recalls that we had, it's a percentage of each of those areas, because we can't track just numbers of recalls. We get better in reporting recalls, especially in the United States. I feel like we're getting more in tuned and using database systems and multi-state outbreaks. So identifying that the number doesn't seem to be an effective KPI. But what we want to do is look at proportionally where are these recalls occurring. We look in biological, chemical, and physical hazards, and we rank each of those. Chemical includes mislabeling of allergens. So if you see in 2017, we had 48% of our recalls were due to mislabeling of allergens. Moving forward to 2022, we implemented code changes. We created guidance documents. We put forth training programs to focus on mislabeling of allergens, and have reduced it by about 10%. So you can see those efforts by identifying those areas that are challenging to us when it comes to food safety concerns. We can put forth training programs, emphasis, auditor calibration as it relates to those areas. Now, I'm not discounting the 45% in those biological hazards, and those are areas of concern that we have as well. But that's what we are focusing on now, is looking at that 2022 recall data and identifying where are those areas of concern, where are those areas of focus, and what are those lessons learned that we can share with the supply chain. And that's what we want to focus on as it relates moving forward and moving and progressing food safety. So it's not about just containing these recalls and hiding them, but being more transparent and providing solutions to improve food safety. So we do have a number of non-conformances, you know, as it relates to our program, and everybody always wants to hear what those top non-conformances are. So I like to share them. So we looked at them, edition 8 through edition 9, so you could see where we are, if there's any trending, and then compared it to the Oceania region to see you know, if there's any anomalies, or just see where you are. Again, we look at these as areas of, you know, just to, I think, solve people's curiosities, to be honest, but look to see if there are any anomalies. We primarily look to see if there's areas within certification bodies to ensure consistency among the code requirements, and really to see if there's any misinterpretation of these code requirements. So when we first started tracking them, edition 9, when edition 9 came out, we noticed that food safety culture was trending high in non-conformances. And that was because auditors were looking for the words food safety culture on the food policy. And the written food policy statement. And so we clarified it doesn't exactly have to say food safety culture. It's the commitment of food safety culture that has to be demonstrated through that policy statement. So once we clarified that, you'll notice that food safety culture isn't one of those top non-conformances, because we don't want easy findings, we want better findings. And so by accumulating and sharing this information, this gives us the opportunity to see, is there any misinterpretation of these code requirements? Are there areas that we need to correct and clarify, either from the site or even from the auditor or the CV? So you can see here, thawing of food was the only critical nonconformance under edition 9 for this region. It was basically the equipment that was being used wasn't safely thawing the food using, so food safety was a concern, and so a critical was issued. Major nonconformances, you know, pretty much consistent with what has been in the past. Internal audits, the number one, which, you know, I'm pleased to see, because I think an internal audit, we've done the research, and an internal audit, a good internal audit program really demonstrates the commitment of that site. And really, statistically, a good internal audit will lead to a better SQF score. And that's proven statistically. We've run the numbers and we realize, hey, if there's a good internal audit that's conducted by this site, they are ultimately going to have a better SQF score. And that just makes sense. But cleaning and sanitation, pest prevention, you'll see that even under the minors and food safety plan. Those are those top major non-conformances, and pretty consistent with the rest of edition 9. The minor non-conformances, again, cleaning and sanitation, there is product traceability, identification, internal audits, equipment and utensils. We basically see a lot of cleaning and sanitation. The wrong utensils their utensils aren't being stored correctly, improperly. You know, rags on pallets or on top of lockers, or brushes hanging too close to one another. One's food contact, one's non-food contact. And so we see a lot of those incidences. And same thing, you know, pest control seems to be trending simply because we are, the sites rely too much on that third-party pest control provider. So that pest control operator isn't trending for the site, isn't really focused on pest prevention, but just managing pests once they come in. So there needs to be a little bit more effort on behalf of the site, not just to implement a pest control program or hire a pest control operator, but really focus on ensuring that pest control is always happening with or without the operator being there. And then again, just like equipment and utensils, those are always going to be highlights in those minor nonconformances as well. So SQF, we have a site survey. We encourage, it's on our website. So after every audit, we encourage those sites to take our survey. So we want to hear that feedback because that provides us with the information we need in order to continuously improve. So maybe we need to establish a new KPI or provide this feedback to the certification bodies. So this year we have 391 audits, which is a little less than what we've had in the past. So last year, or in 2021, we had 583, so 33% less. So again, encourage you, go to our website. It's an easy survey. I think it's like 10 minutes to fill it out, and it's anonymous. So it's not like there's going to be any repercussions if this information is ultimately shared with the certification body. But we do want to hear that feedback. So overall ratings, certification bodies, this is out of a 5-point scale. Certification bodies received a 4.66 out of a 5 rating, and auditors received a 4.76 out of a 5.0 rating. And so looking at the knowledge again, out of a 5.0 rating, all above 4.5, the knowledge of the particular food sector category that they were auditing in, knowledge of the SQF code, knowledge of HACCP, knowledge of basic GMPs and those prerequisite programs that are required. And some of those really good comments that we got, we feel like our SQF system is stronger based on the auditor's findings, extremely professional, the real deal, strict, but also fair. So those are all really good comments that we like to hear and we like to share with our auditors, because then they recognize that their behavior, their good auditing skills and knowledge is being rewarded as well. So, if you have the opportunity, feel free to go to our website at sqfi.com under the compliance and integrity program, and there's the opportunity to fill out the survey. So this year, we do want to focus on auditor professional development, and we can only do that with hearing the feedback from you all. So we do want to focus on that auditor identifying where their competencies need to be improved, and then taking training or classes or focusing on that behavior so that they can continuously improve. Because we do have those 700 auditors here that are qualified to do SQF audits, and they all want to strive to continuously improve. So your feedback is most welcome and valuable. I also wanted to take this time to share an article, or actually it was a global training survey that was conducted by our online training partners, Intertech Alchemy. And they did a online this survey on training, and it's a really good survey. It has some really good information in it, and when I'm done with this presentation, I'll copy paste that link and put it in the chat, because just to drop down or just to open it up and read even the executive summary. But this is some really good fodder for the sites that are out there to say, I want more training, because what this survey found is that when a site provides their employees training, it improves motivation, and in return it improves food safety behavior. Of course it does. And then of course it reduces employee turnover. So there's so many benefits to training, but oftentimes we don't have the data and the statistics to show our bosses so that we could say, look, this is why we need training, or this is why my team needs training. This is why we need to take the time to train. So I'll put that link in the chat survey, or the chat feature and in this webinar, so that you have it. And it's like 50 pages long, so it goes into the dirty details about everything. However, focus on the first few pages, especially that executive summary, and I think you'll be able to have some really good information. Oops, oh my goodness, I'm not quite sure what happened. Sorry. Just checking the time. Okay. All Okay, next up, I do want to share with you that SQF has now logos that not just for the site, but for also all of our SQF professionals. So our certification bodies, our training centers, our trainers, our auditors, and our consultants now have the ability to use our logo appropriately. So all of this is on our website, sqfi.com. And for logos, feel free to reach out to us if you want the logo that you can use on your business card, on your website, on stationery, or signage, or whatever your license agreements or whatever contracts that you send out. So we're really happy and pleased to share this with you. So hopefully you guys can use that and represent the SQF brand as you talk with your clients. And lastly, I'm going to wrap things up here so that there's a couple minutes for questions. I want to share with you the FSMA update, and I know this is mainly in the US, but on November 7th in last year, the US Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, released their final rule on traceability. So this was a much anticipated rule, and it was the last part of FSMA. And it really affects every part of that supply chain, from grower all the way to the retailer. And it includes the manufacturer, the distributor, and ends at that retailer or food service operation. So while this rule is for the US food supply, I bring it to your attention because it also applies to product being imported into the US. It requires specific food to requires additional traceability requirements. It's dependent on the particular action at the site. So whether it's distributing it or repurposing it or whatever it is, and that's what's called a critical tracking event. It includes activities like I said, harvesting, cooling, initial packing of the raw agricultural commodity, transforming, shipping, and receiving. And in these instances, when the site is working with this identified food, high-risk food, it's required to establish a traceability program to describe those record-keeping operations. So here's a list of those foods that are included in this rule. It's a wide variety of food. Including cheeses like cottage cheese and cream cheese, many different fresh cut fruits and vegetables, as well as fish and deli salads. So these high-risk foods that were deemed high risk by FDA. And there's a lot of different aspects to it, and I'm not going to go into the detail here, but we do have more detail on our website. So if you go to sqfi.com, there's a special traceability tab, and there's included in there are many resources that our organization, the Food Industry Association, has provided to us. And we also have a recorded webinar on there that our Chief Science Officer, Hillary Tesmar, had conducted with us on this, and answers a lot of those questions. So my goal today was just to introduce you to this rule and provide you with a high-level overview. However, if there is interest, I'd be happy to do another webinar for this region, specifically as it relates for imported foods. So let Damien know if this is something that you all are interested in, and we will certainly work with Damien to set this up. So this rule takes effect in 3 years. And while that seems like a long time away, there is so much that needs to happen in between then. So I don't want to delay. So again, if there are more questions or information that you want, feel free to reach out to Damien, and we'd be happy to work with him in order to do this. Okay, so let me wrap up. I just want to share with you some of the product development that we have in progress. We're looking to identify if there is a means that we could expand our food packaging to include non-food product, those consumer goods, those consumer product goods, the CPGs like shampoo bottles, etc. We are building a consultant development network program for those emerging regions, and we're piloting a program right now in LATAM to see how can we develop consultants to be ambassadors for SQF. We are seeking to align our retailer, our food retailer, and our food service programs, because many retailers have food service within their operations. So how can we streamline that into one certificate solution? We are preparing for new additions and updates, and I'll speak to that in the next slide. Focusing on developing supplier readiness pre-screening tools, and how can we incorporate that virtual option in getting suppliers ready. And then expanding our online training. So right now we have a new risk bundle. So it's a complementary next step to that implementing bundle that we have, that's our online training. So our new risk bundle focuses on food defense. It looks at online training, food defense, allergen management, food fraud, and risk assessments. So it incorporates a lot of those risk-based programs, and it's very complementary to that implementing bundle that we have as well. So 2023, just to share with you, there are no new updates or additions scheduled for 2023. I can see your applause right now, nor for 2024. So the idea isn't to release a 9.1, a 9.2, a 9.05, or especially an edition 10. So this is really dependent on GFSI. I can never say never. So if GFSI decides that they want to update the benchmarking requirements, then of course SQF would have to ensure that our program meets any of those new changes. But I'm not anticipating GFSI doing that. So therefore, I don't see us providing any new code changes or updates until 2025. But that doesn't mean the work starts in 2025. What we will be doing in 2023 and 2024 is collecting that feedback comment, developing technical working groups so that we can be prepared and release 2025 or release edition 10 holistically. That includes not just the code, but also that supplemental material like guidance documents and training programs that really help identify and implement the code changes at the site level. I also really want to talk to you next about our new website. So we are in the process of developing a new website, a new SQFI.com, using the latest and greatest features and using some feedback, a lot of feedback that we got from our stakeholders on how we can improve and enhance that customer journey, just for new sites as well as existing sites, and provide them with the tools and resources that they need easily and can navigate much more easier than what we've had in the past. So I really do also want to conclude by thanking you all today for allowing me to share this update, and thanks to Damien for providing me this space so that I could share this information with you. I will be around for the rest of, it's my evening, but the rest of your day, so that if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them. And with that, I will hand it over to Damien so that, stop sharing, and so that you can, okay, stop sharing. Okay, there you go. So that, that he can take any questions that we might have. Thank you.
Thank you, LeAnn. Very insightful. I learned a lot. There was a number of questions, which I think for the most part we've answered. However, there was one question around, do you see many falsified certificates? And is there a way that businesses can check to see if their certificates are falsified?
Yeah, that's a good question. We see a number of them. I'm not going to say we have had an onslaught of falsified certificates, but the SQF public directory is the place to go to verify that if that site is certified or not. So the certificate is what the CB issues, and it's in their hands. But in order to verify that site, feel free to go to our public directory. And I believe you can look it up by facility ID, you can look it up by name, you can look it up by country. There's a number of ways to search to see if that site is actually certified. So that would have the latest and greatest, the latest rating, the latest certification status, and it does also provide a historical as it relates to the previous SQF audits as well. So our site is the end all be all as it relates to verifying that information. So we see some, but it's not really, I mean, they're concerning when they come in, but I haven't really seen it uptick or anything.
Okay, great. Thank you, LeAnn.
Mhm.
Our next speaker, I'm proud to introduce is Todd Redwood. So he is the Director of Food and Retail for the Asia Pacific region for BSI. He's been with BSI for over 10 years, worked across the food industry and lots of different industry types, industry sectors, all within food. Because he doesn't have enough to do, he's also the Deputy Mayor of my local town and his local town.